Live NFL trivia every Tuesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge and have a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. There was a very long period of time where Washington simply didn't like picking in the first round. Much like children believe in Santa Claus and Seth MacFarlane believes in flashbacks, Washington general manager Bobby Beathard believed that first round picks were stupid. From 1969 to 90, Washington made a grand total of 3 picks in the first round. That's it. I've said it in previous videos, but in 2000, the New York Jets made more first round picks than Washington did in an over 2-decade-long stretch. Now, to be fair, this unconventional strategy actually worked. In that stretch, Washington only had a losing record 3 times. They never finished last in their division. They won 2 Super Bowls and made it to 2 more. Obviously, I don't agree with the strategy, but I can't deny the fact that it actually kind of worked. They got Pro Bowl wide receiver Roy Jefferson out of one of those trades. They got defensive tackle Dave Butts out of another one. And they got Pro Bowl cornerback Lamar Parrish out of another one. As crazy as the strategy might seem, it got results. That is, most of the time. Because there's one trade that stands out from the rest, and it stands out in just about the worst possible way. In 1985, Washington traded away a future first-round pick for a player who would wind up playing a grand total of 0 snaps for the team. They completely threw their first-round pick in the trash. And this is the story behind the worst NFL draft trade in Washington history. Before I talk about the trade, we need some context as to how Washington was doing entering the 1985 NFL draft. In 1984, it seemed like Washington's reign of terror over the NFC was coming to an end. After going 8-1 in 1982 and winning Super Bowl 17, and going 14-2 in 1983 and making it to Super Bowl 18, Washington stumbled a bit in 1984. Now don't get me wrong, they were still a good team. They went 11-5 and they won the NFC East. But considering the fact that they went 1 and done in the postseason, their season was clearly not as successful as what they were used to in recent memory. And the biggest reason why they struggled was probably their pass defense. Out of 28 teams in the NFL, they ranked 25th in passing yards and 20th in passing touchdowns allowed. Obviously, there was talent in the secondary up top. Dowel Green started every game and would make the Pro Bowl, and would eventually go down as one of the greatest players in team history. For the record, he was one of the 3 first-round picks that Washington actually made in that 2-decade-long stretch. And Vernon Dean had 7 interceptions in 1984, and led the league with 2 pick sixes. There was just not a lot of depth behind them. It got so bad that they were giving considerable amounts of playing time to Ricky Smith, who earlier in the season was playing wide receiver with the New England Patriots. Washington needed secondary help. They didn't have a first-round pick, because of course they didn't. They used that to acquire running back and former first overall pick George Rogers from the New Orleans Saints. But Washington had a second-rounder. It was pick number 51, and there was a player that they really wanted that they thought could help solve their problems. That was San Diego State cornerback Torrey Nixon. He had somewhat surprisingly fallen out of the first round, and Washington's coaching staff and front office were really high on him. So the team began calling, and they found a trade partner. It was all downhill from there. When Washington called up Atlanta, the deal was a straight 1-for-1 swap at first. Atlanta gives up their pick at number 33, and Washington gives up their first-round pick in 1986. At first, Atlanta declined the trade, and said that Washington needed to throw something else in there. That something was Pro Bowl running back Joe Washington. Washington is best remembered for his incredible 1979 campaign as a member of the Baltimore Colts, where he made the Pro Bowl and led the league with 82 receptions. He was on the wrong side of 30 by this point, and didn't appear to have too much left in the tank after posting just 192 yards on a career-worst 3.4 yards per carry in 1984. But Atlanta wanted him. Head coach Dan Henning was in Washington for 2 years as an offensive assistant, so he knew what Joe Washington could bring to the table. Plus, he was expendable after the Charles Rogers trade. With Keith Griffin and John Riggins there alongside Rogers, it was tough to see where Washington was going to get any carries or playing time. After some more back and forth, with Atlanta throwing in a 6th-round pick in 1986 to complete the deal, Washington now had pick number 33. And with it, they took Torrey Nixon, giving him $200,000 in guaranteed money, which was a lot at the time. Head coach Joe Gibbs was super excited about the trade, saying that Nixon is a super smart, intelligent guy who's really polished at corner. He would regret those words later on. A few weeks later, when Washington held minicamp, he showed up in poor condition. The guy who was running 4.5 constantly and was known for his blazing speed with the Aztecs, as Beathard said, wasn't the same player they saw in college. Then, he only practiced once after pulling a hamstring. Things were off to a rocky start. but Nixon had a chance to get better and rehab in Washington for some informal workouts. Nixon decided not to do that, saying that he could get hamstring treatment anywhere. Instead, he left Washington to go to San Diego and Phoenix, where he attended his friend's wedding. And he didn't sign with Washington until early August. By that point, he had already missed the first 2 weeks of training camp. And in the preseason, things only got worse, as he allowed 2 touchdowns of 40-plus yards. To sum it up, Nixon couldn't play well, and had some serious attitude problems on the surface. With that, before even playing a regular season game, Beathard and Washington were thinking about cutting their losses, biting the bullet, and just moving on. So that's exactly what they did. After the preseason, Nixon knew that he wasn't playing well, and asked Beathard not to give up on him. But nobody saw what was about to happen next, because 6 days before the regular season, Washington traded Torrey Nixon for a 6th-round pick in 1986 to the San Francisco 49ers. Washington was blunt in their assessment of Nixon on the way out. Joe Gibbs said that Nixon wasn't his kind of kid, didn't want to stick around and work, and didn't have a working attitude. Beathard said that the team made a mistake, that he wasn't as fast or as physical as he was in college, and that he was one that the team just missed on. In fairness to Washington, it seemed like it was between Nixon and 8th-round pick Barry Wilburn for the final quarterback spot on the roster. And apparently the only reason it was even remotely close for Nixon earning a starting spot is because of where he was drafted. In terms of the on-field performance, there was no contest there. And that turned out to be the right move keeping Wilburn, as he played 5 seasons in Washington and led the league in 1987 with 9 interceptions while being named the first-team All-Pro. That doesn't even include the 3 picks he had during Washington's postseason run to win Super Bowl 22. As for what happened to Nixon with the 49ers, he was alright. Considering that they only gave up a 6th-round pick for him, it was a solid investment on their part to buy low. He played 4 seasons with the team, and in a 1986 game against the Packers, actually had the longest pick 6 by any player in the league that year. He made some good plays on special teams as well, but he was doing that with San Francisco. With Washington, he literally did nothing. Washington gave up a 1st-round pick and a Pro Bowl running back for him, and he played a grand total of 0 snaps for the team. Again, Bobby Beathard was a solid GM. There's a reason he's in the Hall of Fame, and a lot of times that strategy of giving up 1st-round picks worked, but not this time. Giving up a future 1st-rounder for a 2nd-rounder is always going to be a stupid move, no matter how you slice it. It was stupid when the Falcons did it in 1999 in a trade with the Ravens, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner, and it was stupid back in 1985 as well. In the over 80 years that Washington has been drafting, this might just be the worst draft trade that the franchise has ever made. Be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, and subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JRGator9 and subscribe to 60-second NFL History on YouTube. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See what you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.